Hi there, this is Clovis from kinematiclab.com. This video is about a new tool called Dorito. This tool simplifies the creation of what is usually called a Dorito effect, but in a way that doesn't create any extra geometry or helpers or any manual setup. The idea is to quickly create a helper that sits on top of a deformed geometry and deforms it as a second animation layer while avoiding double transformations. After you install the tool, the only thing you need to do is to add a Dorito modifier in your modifier stack. And now you can start to add a Dorito helper. To do that, you simply press the plus button and click and drag on your geometry, and you will see that the helper is going to travel across the surface. Okay, you can place it anywhere, and if you press shift, it's going to be projected inside the mesh volume at the center point. So it will be easier to place it on joints or more convenient places for animation if you need to. When I right click, it validates the helper and adds it to the list. So now that I've created one, I can do more things. I can delete it with this delete button. I can also enter the edit mode with this edit button and click and drag again, press shift to project it in the middle, etc. So this is going to define a new mesh location for the helper. Okay, so now that it has been placed, let's play the animation. You see that the helper sticks to the deformed geometry like it would do with an attachment constraint. But you can also edit the animation underneath, whether it is from skinning and bones or any deformation modifier like a noise, a bend, twist, anything. So in my case here, my character is animated from a morpher for my face rig and skinning and bones for the body. Actually, it's a biped. And because this helper is going to follow any mesh deformation that happens underneath the Dorito modifier, I can animate my character, and you will see that my helper is going to be following the mesh deformation. Okay, so you can do anything before the Dorito modifier, like adding a modifier like a noise. Okay, and you see that the helper is following it. And if I disable Dorito, nothing happens. Okay. So, wonderful. We have a helper linked to a mesh deformation, but nothing fancy. But if we go back to the modifier here, we can now deform the mesh with it. If you select the helper in the list, you have access to weights parameters. If you change the distance value here, you will see a color gradient, okay, changing from the location point to neighbor vertices like a soft selection. It represents each helper influence. So now I can change the transformation of my helper by moving, rotating, or scaling it. And it will affect the vertices I defined in the modifier earlier. So let's make some changes like that. For example, okay. So you can see the difference here. And let's play the animation. So you can see the new deformation layer happening on top of the underlying animation without affecting our skinning values, and which means that it's a kind of additional rig. Okay, it doesn't sit inside the skinning, the bones, or the envelopes of the skin modifier. It's really something that happens on top, so you can enhance your rig from that. And you can still modify the animation below, of course. And our Dorito effect will adapt on top. And what makes it super useful is that you can animate this to enhance your rigs or correct deformations. So I can add some keyframes to it to make it move. Etc. Let's go back into modifier. You can change the weight, ease in and ease out values. So it's going to affect your gradient, of course. You have access to these distance and ease in, ease out values also from the helper as well. Okay, so you can adjust directly from here on each different Dorito modifier. You can also reset the helper transform by pressing this reset button. Okay, so by doing that, the Dorito helper is not going to affect anything, so it's really resetted to 0. You can also select your helper from here. Okay, so when you have more Dorito helpers here, it's going to be easier to select them. And so adjust them here and select them from here as well. So also selecting from helper distance like that is nice, but sometimes you will need more control. So we have a way to get selection from stack. Basically, right now we don't have any modifier in the stack which does any vertex selection, but we can transfer the current Dorito weights into a new one using the toStack button. So it creates a new edit poly modifier where you can select anything you want. Okay, so I'm going to modify the selection, growing, changing my vertex selection. Oops. Changing the follow values here. Okay, I can use the pinch, the bubble, etc. to really adjust this exactly as I want it. Okay, I'm going to add more over here, and here maybe. Right, so now that I have corrected my selection, I can go back to Dorito and press from stack. It will take your selection and affects it to the helper. Okay, you see that the gradient has changed. So now if I change this, you see that it's going to affect everything that I changed, everything that I selected here. There is also this capture transform option. You can think of it like the always deform checkbox you can find in the skin modifier here, or like the don't affect children in this panel. Okay, it allows you to offset the helper transformation from its creation state transform. So for example, you have to check this option, and you could modify this position, okay, rotation etc., to a more convenient place to animate it. So for example, this one, I would like it to be aligned to this bone, okay, and I uncheck the button, and now it is applied, so I can animate my Dorito selection from here instead of from where it was here before. Okay, so to finish with the UI, there is a display panel here where you can change the helper type. So you can choose from cross, box, diamond, square, circle, sphere, etc. You can change globally the size of all your Doritos from here as well. Display the weights, change the highlight color of the Dorito helpers. So yeah, I think that's it for this first tutorial. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked it, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.